And I'm actually going to get right into it. And you really want to know how. You know, how can I blaze my own path? How can I be successful? How can I follow the path that someone else has laid for me to be successful?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 216. No, just kidding. Yikes. Episode 215 of Campus Cuts. Today, I have a powerhouse in every embodiment of that word over here as a guest. She is bold. She is selfless. She is fearless, even though she doesn't think she's fearless. But she's broken a lot of barriers and doors throughout her time at Baylor, and she's always just been a radiating light. So, without further ado, I want to welcome the now former student body president of Baylor University, Sloane Simpson. How are you today?
Thanks, Tanaka. I mean, what an intro. Wow, do not feel deserving of that at all. But I'm well. I'm happy to see your face. Happy to be on this. I mean, this is a dream of yours. It's been a dream for so long. And to be a part of it now, when I was a part of the initial conversations, I am honored.
I mean, you got to go full circle. You've been on my list.
Hey.
Because you've been so busy. And I mean, I've been busy. But the world has stopped. And now we get a chance to talk.
It's true. It's true.
And it's surprising. Well, I think this is going to be a very good episode because most time when people see you talking, they see you talking on a screen, or they see you talking just with huge amounts of people. But also, I don't know. And from my eyes, I don't think people get a chance to see a more intimate side of you. I mean, of course, we've always had great intimate conversations, but I feel like this will just be a different perspective. And I feel like sometimes with leadership, or even any form of leadership or student leadership or anything, there's this idea of, hey, they're just this leader, but you are human. You are just as human as each and every one of us. And I feel like it will just be a great way to pull back the curtain for people to get to know you a little bit more.
Oh, well, I'm helpful. Hey, I'm an open book. You know this. You've known me for too long. I'm very much that way. So I'm excited.
Well, of course, I do have questions that I'm going to ask you. But I mean, it's so funny because you know what Campus Cuts is about. I always tell people on whoever listen, like, so Campus Cuts is this, but you were the one there helping me plan this out and plan everything. And it is really, it really took off way better than I ever expected it to. Currently, as of yesterday, had over 10,575 listens, total plays, and
that's incredible.
In 6 continents, every continent except Antarctica. And honestly, with it, and I'm saying that this, I never expected this, and this idea was not even like a selfish idea, but it was something that God talked to me about. And as a way to continue to, so I was just trying to humanize just like Baylor, but
isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Started so small.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm gonna dive in. So the first question is, just introduce yourself, your introduction, what is your name, your year, your major, and your hometown. And then after that, why did you choose Baylor? And then we're gonna move on from there.
Perfect. It's the typical Baylor introduction. I know, I love it. My name is Sloane Simpson. I am a senior graduating, in a week, 2 weeks, crazy. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and I majored in marketing and entrepreneurship. And why I chose Baylor, really, I think everyone says this, but it truly was the community was what really sold me on Baylor. But initially it was the faith-based perspective. I mean, I felt the Lord really calling me to Baylor. I was looking at other Texas schools, looking at Auburn, as well as like some out-of-state schools as well. My initial goal was to do Ivy League. That was early on in my high school career. And then I realized once I got older, I really wanted to stay a lot closer to home. I'm very much a homebody. But Auburn was the furthest away that I was thinking. I was thinking really heavily A&M, a little bit of Abilene Christian, because they were just very generous with a lot of scholarships. But Baylor especially. And I toured A&M, and then once I came to Baylor, it was just so unique. I loved how open you could be about your faith and how your professors would integrate that into classwork and curriculum, and just how students were so welcoming and open and very transparent. I mean, it seemed so open from the very beginning. So I knew I would be able to really develop and learn a lot about myself there. So that's where the story all began.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you mentioned that you're graduating. First of all, to the class of 2020, congratulations to you, especially during this time where it's chaotic and there's everything all over the place.
Yeah.
But you know what? No, kudos to you for just holding on to your composure and just being grateful for everything that you've gone through. And I'm grateful for your leadership, and I want to make sure that you get your flowers. How much you mentioned. No, I mean, I just give everybody their flowers because they need to be, and it's kind of hard because I had this whole plan of giving my people that were leaving or graduating letters. I handwritten letters and they're on campus, but they're gone.
Oh.
They're stuck in my dorm. But anyway, but yeah, it's just a note and appreciation to you. So, I mean, of course, you are about to graduate, and my first question for you is, you know, it's 4 years. How have you felt like you've changed? What about you has changed your mindset or your work ethic? And because I know like 4 times goes by this, like I didn't realize how fast college actually goes by, but it feels much longer. And I want to get your perspective on like why and like how are you and where are you at now compared to when you first came in?
Yeah. And you feel that. I mean, you're about to be a senior. It goes by so fast. It's really crazy. You know, it's so interesting. I have thought a lot about this, especially with quarantine. I've had a lot of time to self-reflect. I'm always someone who tries to be very thoughtful and reflecting pretty frequently, you know, every week, every month, and definitely at the end of each year. But I would say at the end of last semester, I was feeling very sentimental and thinking a lot about my Baylor experience. The first thing I would be so grateful to Baylor for is my leadership development. And that's something I think you can see pretty evident in my, you know, resume as I've been at Baylor. But it wasn't just leadership in the sense of learning how to guide people, but learning how to be a strong Christian leader and a strong female leader, and really finding what that looks like to be a strong and independent woman, but work within a community and lead within a community. That was something really big for me. I think I really found my voice when I came to college. I thought I had my voice when I was in high school, and I definitely did. I definitely knew who I was developing a lot in myself, but I thought when I was in high school that to be a strong leader and to really make an impact, you needed to be loud and you needed to be able to rally people behind you because you had the strongest opinion in the room. And then when I got to college, I learned so much more. Actually, Dr. Jackson, the Vice President for Student Life, he taught me a lot about this as well. But learning how to listen first and speak second was huge for me and so transformational. So really, I think I just became so much more confident in who I was and recognizing my natural skills and abilities, but being able to apply those in a way that would help me be most successful. So listening to others, really trying to care for them well, and then from that, moving forward and making decisions. So really that's what it was for me, learning how to tap into my leadership skills and find my voice and very confidently carry that out.
Yeah. And I mean, I know this was a question that was always asked in the leadership class that we were in Dr. Jackson's class. But I mean, how has your definition of leadership changed from, you said like loud and whatever, but like specifically the last 2 years serving as, you know, you were EP and now student body president. What was kind of like I guess, you know, that's a huge accomplishment in itself. But I mean, of course, with any journey, there's bumps and there's bruises and there's so many detours. And we're one of them right now, right? But like, what was in the face of like leadership in terms of what did you find out? Like, what was it that you knew that, okay, this is what it means to be a leader, especially in these moments where it doesn't feel like I'm on top of it?
Oh, completely. I mean, that is a very interesting point to make. So when you say like you're not on top of it, I think two really big things. One was more recently, but something I learned very quickly was there's not enough hours in the day, and I want to be an entrepreneur. That's the ultimate goal. So this was good for me to learn early on, but there are never going to be enough hours in the day for me to complete everything, right? To be a completely well-rounded person that I want to be the best friend, the best daughter, the best student, best, student body president, vice president, whatever. So learning that I don't need to be so hard on myself, make tangible goals, but really to figure out, what is most important during the day, and those things that I could achieve. So that's like a very tangible thing. I was really hard on myself, but recognize I'm not always going to have the answer, not always going to have it together. You do what you can and surround yourself with a lot of really smart people, smarter than you, humbling yourself enough to say, I'm not going to have the answers. I need a really strong team around me. I need strong mentors. That was like a very tangible thing. But then more on the emotional side, probably spiritual side, that I've learned was it's not about me at all. And it never has been about me. And it's not going to be about me in the future, because I'm just one small person in history. And especially in the line of student body presidents who've served at Baylor, I'm just one little blip on the radar. And I'm very okay with that. But what was challenging was when COVID really started to affect the United States. And when we were on spring break, and then we find out we're not going to be returning back to campus. And Dr. Jackson called me and said, I'm so proud of you, so proud of your leadership. Let's just look for ways to be creative during this time. And I think that was the first time I recognized how much the Lord had changed my heart, because instead of me saying, oh, I'm so sad, I'm not going to be able to, do my farewell speech, I'm not going to be able to be there for elections and all these things we had looked forward to. It was, how can I be there for our student body right now? How can I be able to serve them in a way that I was thinking through the perspective of, our out-of-state students who aren't going to be able to come back, our international students who are going to have to stay on campus, those whose families have been affected. There's just so many people that you have to think, how can I be there for all these people during this time? So recognizing it's not about you. It's about caring for those around you, and you're just a vessel. So hope that answers your question. Those are two really big things that have stood out to me, though.
Yeah, that's really good. And I know with leadership too, I think one of the hardest balancing acts with that is your own cup. Were you able to, like, was it in the sense of, were you letting people in to fill you up? Because you're doing a lot of pouring out. You're at a lot of meetings. You're not only just student body president. You were in a sorority. You had you're a friend. You're a daughter. You're a student. For goodness sakes, you went over to Europe. You're at Capstone. I definitely want to go into that, and when it comes to asking about what diversity means. But
yeah, of course.
And you being well traveled. But it's just you're everywhere, and this idea of feeling spread thin. So what were some of the tangible things that you did in order to make sure to take care of yourself? And how were you able to allow people to pour into you? And was it hard for you to first to do that? Because, as a leader, you're like, oh, I got this. Like, oh, good. Don't worry. It's all about you. It's all about you guys. It's all about you.
Mm-hmm. Tanaka, stop reading me so well. Come on.
Nah, man. It's just questions. I love asking questions.
I know. So I would say, I'll get to the tangibles for sure in a second, but I mean, you talk about how have you changed during your time. So I started as a line camp leader my sophomore year, and then I served as EVP junior year, and then now SVP. And in my role as external vice president, I served under, obviously, Hannah, and I had a team. So there was three of us, me, Hannah, and Elizabeth, so the two VPs and the SVP. And during that time, I was definitely very self-sufficient, and it wasn't even that I took pride in that. I felt like that's what you needed to do as a leader. That's what you're taught. Like you said, you're there to be there for those around you, and you really need to make sure that you have the highest standards. You're working the hardest. You're the one being the true servant leader. Going above and beyond, doing the things that you're asking your team to do, also doing things by yourself. So as EVP, I really struggled with letting people pour into me and care for me, and I would not ask for help because I didn't want to, and I didn't want to burden people. Really, is what it came down to. But going into this year, I had some personal things go on this summer that really kind of shook me personally. And it was truly God's way of showing me, you're not going to be able to do this by yourself at all this year. And I very quickly recognized that and accepted that. And I made my word for the year surrender. And that meant I will do whatever it takes to, be the best that I can be in this role and fall into where I have been called. And part of that of surrendering was allowing people to care for me and pour into me and being vulnerable in that. So speaking with mentors, talking a lot with Dr. Jackson, being really intentional in my community. So with my friends, my family, letting my mom pour a lot into me was a really big thing. She's a huge mentor in my life. And then really just being a lot in the Word and making sure that I was praying and being fed that way. But my biggest thing was being humble enough to say, I need help. I need people to care for me right now in whatever way that looks like, whether that was, if someone could just sit there with me, if Brooke could help me on a project that, I wasn't gonna be able to do myself. But those were for sure some of the tangibles, were asking people for help. And then another way I was able to maintain my sanity, I always prioritize, I'm gonna work out, make sure I'm eating healthy, what is gonna make me happy, whether that's just an hour of going and watching an episode of Friends with my roommates, whatever that looked like. So that's kind of how that looked.
Yeah, that's good. I hope somebody is able to take that, because I know that there's, everybody wants the glitz and glamour until you know what it is to put in the work. And it's so funny because whenever I just think about that, I've been, as of late, been watching the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance.
Oh, so good.
So good.
Every Sunday. It's so good.
I actually was able to get a plug. I know somebody, and shout out to Cara. She
love Jakara.
She sent me a website where it had all 8 episodes. So if you want to watch the rest of it, I have a link. So
what?
All 8 all the 8 episodes except for 9 and 10. So I went all the way up until there. But you see that Michael Jordan, greatest athlete of all time. But it was hard work. Same with Kobe. I'm always listening to their tapes. I'm always listening to their motivational stuff, or just listening to them speak. And It's dirty. This way to be on top.
I know.
Top is dirty. And I just hope this gives insight to it. It's like, it's not what it seems it is.
What's interesting, Tanaka? There are 2 big things or 3, I guess you could say, that really have stood out to me so far through this documentary series. One is, I think anyone can be a leader, and anyone can be a high achiever. Personally, I don't think your personality necessarily determines if you're going to be a strong leader or not. I think there are certain attributes that definitely help you be a more natural leader. But, with Michael Jordan, he was a natural leader, and he was a hard worker. And so that was the first thing, was seeing truly how hard of a worker he was and how dedicated he was, his skill. But second, the team he had around him. You watch, I love basketball. You watch basketball and you normally see, the 3 big players that are all working together. I'm a big Spurs fan, so I grew up really seeing that. But they were a powerhouse, and he needed his team members. He couldn't have done that by himself. And then third, the mentorship of his coaches. It's been really cool to see that full dynamic and how it wasn't just him ever. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't always recognize, is sometimes the people that help one shining star be so successful are a lot more behind the scenes, but sometimes they're right in front of your face and you just don't always see that. So it's fascinating. I've loved it.
I've loved it. Yeah, I loved each and every thing about it. Michael and Kobe are one of my top 2 favorite players. I wanted to be like them, and when I wanted to go to the NBA, but
oh man,
things took a different route. But it's A-okay. That is so awesome. But then just talking about that, and you did mention that you want to be an entrepreneur, or that's what you're striving to be. What does it mean to be an entrepreneur, and why do you feel like you had that inclination in terms of entrepreneurship?
Well, I'll start first with why I've been so inclined towards entrepreneurship. So everyone in my family are strong entrepreneurs, and that has been really neat to see, starting first with my mom. She was a single mom for 9 years. She owned her own restaurant at one point when she was in her early 20s, which was really cool. Obviously, I wasn't around for that, but just hearing those stories was super inspirational for me. You know, just being a single woman at that time, being very dedicated to her work, being so passionate about that. And then she was a real estate agent for a while, which was her, again, forging her own path. It's not exactly entrepreneurship, but similar to that. And then when she and my stepdad got married, they started a distillery company. So they distill vodka and gin. And that's really when I got my first taste of entrepreneurship, and watching the hardships for sure, but the success in the sense of how they were able to pursue their passions and how they were able to inspire other people and be successful because of how passionate they were about what they were doing. So that was huge for me in my very formative, in my early ages of wanting to be an entrepreneur. And then my dad also, he was a practicing anesthesiologist, and now he owns his own anesthesia management company. So seeing these really strong, parent figures in my life figure out ways to take their talents and do something really creative that they were really passionate about has been so inspirational. But for me, I guess if I were to say what an entrepreneur is, I don't think it necessarily has to be you owning your own business. I think an entrepreneur is just someone who is actively creating their passions or actively pursuing their passions in a way that'll impact others. So that could be on a really small basis or in a really large setting. But I think passion is one of the biggest things that defines an entrepreneur for sure.
Give me 10 seconds. I'll be right back.
Hey, you Gucci. This is kind of giving me Harry Potter vibes in the closet. I'm kind of liking it.
Oh, this is the only quiet space that I can record.
That is one of the hardest things I have found about being at home, because you're at home, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, being at home, being with your family, and trying to find spaces. I mean, I'm in the office right now, and I'm shocked that my mom doesn't need it. I was like, please just give me an hour to be in there so that I can record this.
Yes. Yeah. So how has the quarantine treated you since you've been home? I mean,
Yeah, I love it. How many siblings do you have?
I have 4. Yeah, I have 4.
I'm the same. I was like, how many is it? There's too many. So there are 5 of us total in San Antonio, and then I have a half brother in Florida. But here specifically, 2 of my brothers, one's already graduated, and then the other one is in Austin. He's still working there, and he's at UT right now. So, but it's me, my sister Gray, who's a freshman in college, and then Carly, who is a sophomore in high school. So all 3 of us girls, and then my parents. And my parents are used to having one daughter, Carly, home, right? So it is crazy. Everyone's always trying to find their space. It has been so much fun. We're a very tight-knit family, but we definitely are all like, I need my space. I'm going on my walk by myself. Please just give me time for a second. But I've loved it. It feels really normal, which is good.
Okay. Oh, it does. So now with that, I know like with sibling dynamic and relationships, what's when you're little kids, you're like, but I mean, how has like your family, I guess, shifted in terms since now all of you guys are older now? And what's the type of conversation that you're having? And are you guys in tune to the world, or how do you interact? And like, how is that like just that dynamic?
I have loved, one, I love that question. And 2, I've loved watching that dynamic change. And my family is very open and loves to reflect similar, like that's really where I get that from. So it's cool. In our conversations, we'll even talk about, isn't it crazy how, several years ago we were talking about, what everyone's doing in high school, my brother, his football game on Friday or whatever else. And now we're talking about the impact of coronavirus on, ourselves personally, on our family's company. So my mom and stepdad got married when I was 11 or 12. So it was my brother, Nathan, who's a year older than me. So it was 12, 11, 10. So boy, girl, boy. And then, oh, how old was Gray? 9. And then Carly was 5, somewhere in that area. So when we all met, we were really young. Some of us young teenagers. And then now we've just changed so much, but definitely a lot more mature conversations, which is really interesting. It's so funny, even coming home from church now, when we come home from church, the conversations we have are so different from, oh, I liked that song. You know, when you're younger, it's like, wow, okay, does this actually affect us? But no, we love talking about the big kid stuff now with our parents, and they're also so open about their business that it's cool to hear them talk about, you know, different strategies. And especially right now, like I was sharing with you earlier, them adapting to now wanting to help during this time and do hand sanitizer. So it's been cool. It's been really neat to be a part of those bigger conversations.
Yeah, and I guess, have you felt like that you've seen your parents change from that superhero to now like they're human? And how has that affected you just in ways like how you walk life through them or with them?
Yeah. I think this is one of my favorite questions to ask people. I think everyone has that one moment when you realize, oh my gosh, my parents aren't perfect. And it's kind of earth shattering, you know, in the moment. You're like, they're not perfect. What's happening? But no, I think now it's been super healthy because my parents are very open with me about, you know, shortcomings they've had, struggles, whatever that looks like. And their transparency has helped me to be a more well-rounded individual, I think, and then also allowed me to come to them when I make mistakes or you know, when I'm certain about different things, and makes me feel more comfortable to be fully transparent with them because I know that's going to be reciprocated. So I would say it's definitely strengthened our relationship a lot. It definitely is a different dynamic because you still have that respect for them, but you know, there's a new layer of friendship added in, which I think is so special. I've really liked growing up and getting older and having this new relationship with my parents. It's been really sweet.
Yeah, I think they must be really proud of you for graduating college.
No, they definitely are, even though it looks a little different right now, but no, they definitely are very, very appreciative and very grateful.
That's awesome. So, going into diversity, because this is what it's about.
Let's talk it. You know, I love this.
um, what does diversity mean to you, especially being with somebody that has been well traveled? And also, I want you to talk about how that capstone, how that experience has changed your life, and also just in how you walk in life and see like, okay, what does it mean?
Yeah. Well, for me, you know, diversity, I feel like there's so many ways that you could approach this, but mine's going to seem a very simple, broad statement, but I definitely look at it through the lens of my faith, which I know you do too. And I truly believe we were all created to be very unique and very special in God's eyes, so that together we could come together as a collective group and all bring different skills and attributes and come together as one holistic group. So for me, diversity obviously extends far past your ethnic background. It has to do with your passions, your skills, your talents, intellectual ability, all of these things. I think diversity is something really beautiful that maybe has been used sometimes in a context that makes people feel uncomfortable for whatever reason, which, you know, you and I have talked a lot about this. It's very interesting, but I think the conversation needs to be more surrounding how diversity is so positive and so beneficial, rather than, you know, we're not diverse enough or we're not this or that. It's taking it and saying, guys, diversity is not a bad thing. It's a really good thing. And it's not to make anyone feel like they're doing something wrong now. It's more about, look where we could be. Look how much better we could be if we were more diverse. So that's kind of my feelings there. And then talking about travel. So I've been fortunate enough to travel. I've never, only Mexico, but I hadn't been out of the country until I went to Baylor, and very fortunate for a lot of scholarships that I was able to receive, to where my family said, you know what, of course, if you want to go and study abroad, this makes complete sense. Like it fit so well into my time there, which was really great. So my first exposure to Europe was my sophomore year. I went on Baylor Business in Europe, where you go for 5 weeks, and I think you go to 7 different countries. It was the best experience I've ever had in my life. And I learned, I mean, you learn a lot about how you are so small. That was the biggest thing I felt was, oh my gosh, in America, you're so secluded. And you really are so small and insignificant in the world, which is a great thing because it makes you really appreciate others. So going to Europe, it was really cool to be a fish out of water and watch the people there, see the way that they live, the way they interact with each other. I know Europe is a lot more community-based, which I thought we had in America, but there, I mean, it depends on obviously where you are and what the culture is like in certain places, but for the most part, people are so willing to help you get to certain places or whatever else that looks like. And in other places, the community looks more and manifests itself more in smaller groups, your family, your friends, but people are so willing to pay for each other, to care for each other well. You know, it's what can I do for you? So I thought that was really neat, and definitely gave me a different perspective about diversity as well within cultures, which was really cool.
Wait,
And I feel like there was another part to your question
no,
that did not answer.
no, that was it. But like, what do you mean, like, within different cultures? Expand
What
on.
do I?
Yeah. What do you mean when you say like it gives you a little bit more perspective of like what diversity means in different cultures? Like,
Oh yeah.
well, what was it about that was like, oh, I never realized that, or whoa.
I mean, I definitely had known this because you learn about it, you read about it in history, and even just taking different languages, like taking Spanish growing up, you realize that. And growing up in San Antonio, even, there's a lot of different cultures here. It's definitely a melting pot and it's super neat. But seeing that actually in front of you manifest itself, how cultures are so diverse in the way that they interact socially. So for me, I'm a very social person, and I loved watching how people care for each other so differently in different places, and recognizing that it doesn't mean one culture cares for each other better than the other. It's just, it's shown differently. So I thought that was really unique and gave me a very different perspective.
That's really good.
Mm.
No, I'm just saying, yeah. And then so, and you were able to see some things, although a lot of things that most students don't see. And so, with them on campus, how have you seen diversity be discouraged,
Mm-hmm.
whether through your time here, and also been encouraged, whether by faculty, staff, students? And you came at a time when it was 2016.
Yeah.
With that election, and now you're leaving right before an election year, but seeing like the transformation of like what has Baylor done in response to that, and also you being a student leader at like the top position of student leadership, and seeing like how the nuances with faculty and staff grappling with questions about, oh, should we allow this ethnic group to be able to be representative, or like this religion, or
Mm-hmm.
what is our talk and our dialogue with that, and what does it mean for us to continue to embrace everybody as their own, but also sticking towards our values?
Oh yeah. And that is something that I have found absolutely fascinating about working in this position at a university that is a private Christian university like Baylor, because it's one of the things I was so drawn to, but also one of the things that has been the most challenging, which I think if you first enter into it, you wouldn't anticipate it being that challenging to really foster a diverse and inclusive community. But the more you get into it and the more you get into the nitty gritty, you see that there are discrepancies in what people think that should look like. So, and how a Christian university should navigate that based on, what the world pressures are, and then also what social pressures are. What are the needs of students? So encouraged, I would say, I believe that our university works so diligently, and I know you've seen this as well, to really care for our student populations. And what's challenging is sometimes that's not very visible to the greater student population. So there's sometimes a lot of tension there of students feeling like, I'm not heard, no one is even doing anything. But under President Livingstone's leadership, she's been so diligent in making sure that all of our students are heard and welcomed and loved and cared for. But she's been very thoughtful in how we approach that and making sure proper research is done, focus groups, those sorts of things. So one, on a very practical level and tangible level, they've worked on the critical conversations that was launched this year, which I thought was a great way to increase diversity of thought and conversations of two opposing sides, very radical opposing sides, bring them together. And sometimes they would find commonalities and sometimes they wouldn't. And just realizing how to respect each other through that was really neat. I think what was definitely the most interesting to me was seeing how our university approached the LGBTQ plus community. And I don't know what the right answer is ever going to be for Baylor, because there's a lot of different perspectives that come into the leadership of Baylor. But I think, not only that group, but not only that social group, but different religious groups on campus, that's really challenging for Baylor to figure out how do we care for these students if our mission doesn't necessarily explicitly say, that this is the way of life that we endorse, because that's really what it comes down to. Is there are certain statements that Baylor has on their website and, in their mission that don't align with certain students' beliefs. But what I have seen in the way that they have embraced diversity is you will never be discriminated against from a university standpoint. You will always be embraced and encouraged to really seek out community. And it might look a little bit different for certain groups, but they're always being very creative and finding ways to make everyone feel comfortable, loved, and heard. So I think they work really diligently on that and have loved that. From a student government perspective, I think I have seen diversity be both embraced and rejected through our bill, which I know you and Brooke, so I want to repeat a lot of it, but see our student leaders be just not really know how to approach that conversation, not know how to go against the status quo, what we had been used to doing for several years, and restructure our Senate in a way that really would benefit a lot more of the Baylor population. So I definitely was discouraged there, but then, on the other hand, was encouraged in knowing that there were enough student leaders who, once Brooke and I leave, will continue to push this forward. And now we started a really important conversation. So those are the two main things that stick out to me for sure.
Okay. That's good. And I really love how you are able to break all that down. And that's true. You too, and everybody else that was involved in that bill is, that's a legacy right there. And sometimes, legacy is, we might think it's this whole big thing, but it's also like the small little actionable steps that are going to change everything the way that we see fit. But you and Brooke and everybody else involved were able to break the door down. And that was so important. That was so important. So kudos to you.
Thanks. Well, you know what? It was planting a seed, and I might not see that tree come to fruition, and that is completely fine as long as one day it comes to fruition is the hope. But, again, talking about being a vessel and understanding it's not about you, truly I did not want the recognition. I wanted it to pass in order to benefit our student body. So we'll see it happen. I have faith.
I have faith too. So with that, this is now I'm going to ask getting ready to wrap it up, but I asked 3 really big questions for my guest. The first big question from you is, what would you like to see change the United States? That's just it. Just your opinion, your thoughts. What would you like to see change?
I think for me, I was thinking a lot about this question. I've had the privilege, and it was such a blessing to go up to DC twice and be able to lobby on behalf of Baylor and work with, our lawmakers and legislators. And that was just such a unique experience. And I wish those that I interacted with, I think everyone up there they are very willing and eager to listen to you and your needs as a constituent. But I wish that it would be a little bit less individualistic and more inclusive the community. I wish we would do a lot more bipartisan efforts. That is something I'm very passionate about. I don't know if I'll get into politics, but I do know that I would like to see a lot more bipartisan efforts for sure. And I think also from the perspective of our leadership, I very strongly believe in the power of words, and I wish that our leaders would be very thoughtful in the words that they use and recognize that those have a lot of weight and can really impact a lot of people. So that's another thing for me. Just, not sugarcoating anything by any means. I mean, I think we're all adults and we need to know the truth, but recognizing that the tone and framework in which you set things can really affect people's overall morale and just the way that we interact with each other as humans, So those are two really big things for me.
That's good. That's really good. Second question. What are the top 3 things that you would say that you would tell your freshman self?
Top 3 things I would tell myself. I think I would say really soak up this time because you're about to change a lot. That would be a really big one. I think second, I would say really dig into your community and those around you because Baylor has such a unique offering of people. And then I think third, I would say you're going to mess up and it's going to be okay.
Okay. Wow. Before the last big question, I forgot to mention this, but I mean, how has your identity shaped your worldview? Too many times we have a lot of labels, and I guess you would say your label as a Christian white female woman, but understanding that, of course, there's been systematic oppression against women, and it's still like the idea of the wealth gap, and then also this idea of like, okay, should I leave a lifestyle like being the leader like your mom, or so I'm supposed to submit, and also being white in a space, being white in a time period where it seems like everybody is against white people, or like saying you guys just need to wake up, stop being stupid. How do you process that? I just want to ask you that.
Yeah. So I think, you definitely hit on some of the biggest things for me that I definitely have identified as parts of my identity. But the biggest for me, for sure, my faith, and for sure being a woman, and definitely being a female leader, which is very interesting. So obviously, like I said, my mom was a single mom, and growing up, I really thought, that influenced me a lot. And I wanted to be able to be a strong female leader like her and really carry out that legacy and honor her through that. So that's been very interesting coming to Baylor. I wouldn't have seen it then. I think maybe I see it a little bit more now that she has given me the confidence to run for a position like this. I don't think had I had her, the way that she raised me early on, would I have the confidence now to be in this sort of position. But there have definitely been a lot of obstacles with being a female leader and just being a female in general. There at Baylor, I think it's a lot more accepted and common to be a female leader. Also, it's a very unique time in the United States because we are coming up on a lot of feminism and the feminist movement and female leadership. But there's a lot of strong opposition to that as well. And I think, it's just very interesting. Our society continues to be divisive as usual, but people find ways to, navigate through that. But for me, I definitely had a lot of insecurities entering into this role, and for a while wondered if it would be challenging to lead a group of people because I was female. But, you have to let those go to the side. And when you feel like you're called to do something, you just follow through that. So definitely my mom shaping me with the confidence is a big part of my identity. And then my faith, obviously, always following my calling. But it's interesting because I definitely do recognize, and especially you and I have been in a lot of conversations about diversity, but the color of my skin, being a white female, I try very often to recognize where I do have white privilege. And this is not me trying to get brownie points here. We've talked about this. It's something for me because of my faith. I want to be loving and fair to everyone around me, really, and make sure that I do recognize that there are times where I am going to have more of an advantage or potentially a disadvantage, and recognizing that how can I make it more equitable in those situations, and how can I care for others well, whether if I am at the advantage or disadvantage. So I'm grateful for attending a school like Baylor that helped me navigate through those questions and surround myself with a community of people who were able to help me through that as well. So it's definitely interesting. The more you learn about yourself, the more insightful you're able to be with those around you in the world, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, my last question for you is, what do you want your legacy to be? Not at Baylor, but just in general in life.
Yeah. I think for me, I've already proven that this is truly my heart in my life by the experiences that I've decided to take part in. And a lot of the things that have impacted me most, it just shows that this is really what I would like to see for my life. My legacy, I really want that to be how I care for others and how I make them feel. I hope that people, maybe not necessarily, I hope they remember me, of course. I hope they remember my friendship and my relationship with them. But more than anything, I hope that I'm able to impact people in a way that empowers them to be the best version of themselves. So whether that's, just making sure I'm checking in on someone, whether that's mentoring someone, being someone who, holds a door for someone, a day where it's very stressful, whatever small interaction or touch point I have with someone, I hope my legacy is that I was able to make a positive impact on their life. So that's it for me.
That's awesome. Last segment of the show is this part of the show. One of my favorite parts of the show is where I speak life to my guest, because I believe words are powerful. Sloane, man, wow. I'm honestly honored, and I'm humbled that you consider me a friend. When I first met you, I was a little bit intimidated by you. I'm not gonna lie, because you kind of had that mean face
in that leadership class.
Yeah. But also like first, but then also like you were just like, and I was like, oh, okay. When I was just sitting with Reggie in the back, like, I don't really know. I'm just here because Reggie said I need to be here. But no, you have been an expression of joy, of friendship, and true authentic leadership. Not because you're being led by your ego, but because you're being led by Christ. I'm grateful for being able to have the opportunity to see so many different sides of you, for your vulnerability and for your ability just to continue to relate to people no matter where they stand, and how you always had a servant heart. And I also admire your ambition, and as well as just your leadership and understanding that you are not going to take no for granted. And that no is not no, stop, but no, the next opportunity, the next door, and you being able to be bold and walk through that. So my encouragement for you is Joshua 1:9. It's just like, to be strong and courageous, especially in this time as you are graduating, but also understand that you have impacted my life. If nobody has told you that, I just want to let you know that here are your flowers, and thank you for all that you've done. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being able to give the opportunity for other leaders to shine, and to never stop being afraid, even when you're scared or you don't know. You didn't possess this idea like, I'm not going to do anything about it, but you always allow community to be around you and surrounded. And yeah, so
That was so kind. Those words mean more to me than you know. I really appreciate you taking the time to say that. That was very thoughtful of you. And I think the world of you. I mean, hearing you think these things about me means so much, but you are an absolute superstar. We've talked about this. You're literally going to run the world, and you better call me when you do, because I want to be there right beside you.
maybe.
Maybe you'll run the world, or maybe you'll call me. You got to call me either way.
No. But thank you so much for taking the time to be part of the podcast.
Hey, thank you. I'm appreciative. I am so appreciative for this little cameo that I was able to have. It means a lot.
Not a cameo.
You're gonna rock it. Yeah. I mean, literally. I know. I'm teasing. No, but I appreciate it. It's meant a lot. You're gonna do great things. And the clothing line, what's the update there?
Oh, I sold out of all my inventory. The next shipment is coming out in the summer, or I'm just waiting for things to die down because I was planning a I don't want to say what I'm about to say, so I'm about to say it off there.
Yeah. Keep that.
Do that. But anyway, y'all, that is this episode with the former student body president, Sloane Simpson. Thank you guys so much for tapping in. Hope you enjoy. We out.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Let me stop this recording. How do I stop this recording?